me to start, Dr. Nee? Oh, do I have to turn this on?
I turned it off because we could get all the noise during that.
There we go.
Well, boy, it's going to be loud for you. I was going to speak really loud. We are so delighted to be here, and thank you so much for inviting us. Of course, Emporia is near and dear to my heart. My name is Carlin Raffi. I am a dietitian, and I also have a doctoral degree in nutritional science. I work at the Virginia Commonwealth University Massey Cancer Center, and I work with Marilyn. I think you all know Marilyn. She really has made a great effort to have us come here to talk to you about the relationship between what we eat in our lifestyles and our risk for cancer, or preventing our risk from cancer, and how our lifestyle can also help us, if we have cancer, have better outcomes with our cancer as well. So I would like to introduce to you Dr. Yi Ning. Dr. Ning actually is a medical doctor from China, but he also has a doctorate of science in nutritional epidemiology from Harvard University, and he has done a lot of research with exactly this topic. So I'm going to be co-hosting with Dr. Ning in this presentation. Dr. Ning?
Hi. Very glad to meet you, all of you. I'm an assistant professor in Division of Epidemiology in the Massey Cancer Center. And mainly my research focuses on obesity and cancer, especially for the cancer survivors, and focus on the nutritional epidemiology of cancer. So today we want to share some information, and we can discuss and create some topics we can discuss together. Yes.
So, of course, we do have this little disclaimer here. The information that we're giving you is actually based on scientific research, but it's not meant to substitute any information or advice that your physician would give you in relation to your health or the lifestyle behaviors you should have in relation to your own personal health. So that's just a little disclaimer before we get started.
The first question is, why is lifestyle change important for cancer survivors? There are several reasons. We all know for the cancer prevention, lifestyle, especially physical activity, body weight, and then nutrition, and non-smoking, can really reduce the risk of many cancers. And for cancer survivors, we try to improve the response to treatment and speed the recovery, and reduce the risk of the recurrence, and also reduce the risk of secondary cancer. What is recurrence? Recurrence means after first time treatment or second time treatment, the cancer was gone, and then it comes back. We call it recurrence. And sometimes, and also we call the secondary cancer. That means we identify one cancer in breast, and then later time we identify a cancer in other organs, like livers or kidneys. We call it secondary. We call the cancer in livers or kidneys as a secondary cancer. And also we try to reduce the side effects of treatment. For example, chemotherapy, radiotherapy can cause some acute side effects, and also late side effects. For example, the radiation therapy can cause increased risk of heart disease for breast cancer survivors. So how to reduce those risks? In general, we try to improve the quality of life and the risk of many diseases, including cardiovascular disease. Today we focus on many aspects other than smoking, but we still want to emphasize smoking is a most important risk factor we can see the blue line. That means the consumption of the cigarette in the US. About 11 years later, the yellow line almost parallel with the tobacco consumption. That means here, American increased smoking, and after tobacco control reduced. And the lung cancer parallel increase, and to the peak and a decrease. The causation between smoking and the lung cancer are very solid. The evidence is very solid. We should pay more attention to stop smoking.
So that's all we're going to say about smoking, but we didn't want to leave it out because you all know that is the most significant change you could make in your life to reduce your risk for getting lung cancer. And so we could not talk about that one. But really, today what we're going to focus on are certain lifestyle behaviors that we can all change. We have control of them, and that's really the good news here. You can really do things with lifestyle to decrease your risk of cancer, or if you've already had a cancer, to actually increase your how well you recover from that cancer. So this is really a good news presentation that we want to have here today. So we're going to talk a little bit about body weight and its relationship to your risk for cancer, or how you can successfully fight cancer. Physical activity, and I know all of you guys are physically active, right? We gave this talk in the Y. That was wonderful. All the people out there doing their exercise with the Y. And eating, and thank goodness, Tracy, thank you very much. This is a wonderfully healthy meal that you're currently eating. I see you're getting 2 servings of vegetables. You're not eating anything fried, and you even have some fruit in that pudding, so you don't have to feel bad about your dessert either. So that's wonderful. And then finally, talk a little bit about prevention of other diseases. Do we want to go through the quiz at this point, Dr. Ning?
Yes, why not?
Okay, so now you all were handed out a quiz, and you were asked to mark down your yes or no answers to some questions on that quiz. Now, did you all do it? Very good. No? Okay, you can do that later on. So, now what I want you to do is I want you to look at the answers of your quiz and count how many answers you marked yes. And this is a great quiz that the American Cancer Society has right on their website. So if you want to go and take this quiz, you can do it on the website as well. So, everybody counted their yes answers, right? So, for those of you who counted 9 to 12 yes answers, give yourself a nice pat on the back. You are doing great. Your lifestyle pattern in terms of nutrition and physical activity really is good. Keep up the good work. For those of you who put 5 to 8 yes answers, you all can also give yourself a pat on the back. You're doing well, but you have some room for improvement. So the recommendation would be to kind of look at those no answers and say, how could I improve those no's or change those no's to a yes some way? And finally, for those of you who had all no's or just up to 4 yes answers, that's a good sign, good indication you should really go through those questions and think about how you can up the number of yeses you have in that little quiz. And I'm hoping that what we present to you today will help you to do that. So now let's move on.
The first part we talk about healthy body weight. If you pay more attention, we are not focused on losing weight. We are talking about healthy body weight. What is a healthy body weight? How healthy body weight can improve quality of life for cancer survivors. Let's see this slide.
You all were given also a couple of different of these. I think you were given a copy of this one, you were given a copy of another one. I hope you were able to figure out your body mass index. Now, body mass index is one way that nutritionists look in general at you to see if you're in a healthy body weight range. It isn't accurate in all circumstances, but in general, it parallels pretty much your risk for many diseases, including your risk for cancer. So what you need to do is find your height on the one side, and then look and find your weight along the top, and then look where that intersects and see where you fall. So green would be normal weight. If you fall in the green, if you fall in the yellow, it would be you're slightly overweight. You gotta watch out. And if you fall in the brown or the red, then it looks like, maybe you need to pay a little bit of attention to your weight. Think about potentially losing a little bit of weight, depending on your health condition. Okay, so that, we just wanted to give you an idea about BMI, because we are going to talk about BMI and its relationship to your risk for cancer and cancer survivorship. Okay.
Why body weight important? And I want to present one of my studies. We reviewed 40 studies, investigated obesity and colorectal cancer risk. On the right side, that means obesity increase the risk of colorectal cancer. We can see almost all studies increase the risk of cancer, colorectal cancer. The evidence are very solid. The people with obesity have 30% increase the risk of colorectal cancer. Generally, we're talking about the 30% is not a small improvement, a small risk. Generally, for the cancer study, even we reduce 5%, it's a big achievement. Therefore, obesity can increase risk of 30%. It's a huge number. And then, for the post-diagnosis, for cancer survivor, we more care about our current body weight, how related with our future quality of life and the survival. And diagnosis, obesity. Here, the cancer survivor with obesity has around 30% reduced survival possibility. And then, mainly for the breast cancer, the mortality increased around 30%.
So now looking at colorectal cancer and the relationship between obesity and recurrence and mortality in colorectal cancer. And so again, this is body mass index of individuals after they've received a diagnosis of colorectal cancer and the outcomes after treatment. And so we see also that patients with a BMI that was above 35, which is a pretty high BMI actually, had both a greater risk of a recurrence of colorectal cancer. And so Dr. Ning defined recurrence for you. That's that you've been treated for your colorectal cancer, it looks like it's gone, and then it comes back. So they have a greater risk for having a recurrence, as well as a greater risk for succumbing to their colorectal cancer. And so there's an association between being obese and outcomes after being diagnosed with colorectal cancer.
The recurrence increased around 38, and also the mortality increased 36%. And let's see the obesity also increase the risk of recurrence and also mortality for the prostate cancer. It's about 21 to 25 for the recurrence. Almost each 10 pounds increased body weight. And also the survival rate reduced around 64%. in terms of the cancer recurrence and also the mortality and the secondary cancer, being overweight or obesity really a huge health problem. We try to reduce the body weight and improve the recurrence, improve the survival. And if the people are already overweight or obese, we should encourage to lose some weight to keep more healthy. Next question is how we can achieve a healthy body weight.
So this is a slide of a very interesting study. Actually, it's a combination of the results of 3 studies. So there were a couple of long studies that they called the nursing health studies. And these studies followed a large group of nurses, over 30,000 nurses in each study, over a period of about 20 years. So they started at one time point and they followed these individuals and asked them questions about how they ate and their lifestyles. And then they watched what happened to them in terms of what kind of diseases they get or how healthy they were, etc. And they did the same thing with a bunch of men around the same time period. And so this is the results of 3 of those studies. And actually what this was looking at was how their consumption of certain types of foods affected body weight over time. And so this was, they measured the weight every 4 years, and so they looked to see how people's weight increased on a 4-year interval over a period of about 20 years. And this is what they found. So on these top food items, you'll notice that all of those bars are off to the right-hand side of that center line. That represents weight gain. So individuals, for every increased portion of these kinds of foods, so guess what they are? Potato chips, French fries, processed meats. Who can name a processed meat? Hot dogs. What else? Tell me one of your favorites. Bologna, Spam, all those processed meats. Unprocessed red meats. You know that red meat is a little bit fattier than other kinds of meats, right? Butter, sweets and desserts, and refined grains. Push the button, the picture will come up.
Yeah.
So, look. There you go. So those kind of foods. So individuals who ate more portions of these kind of foods gained weight. Not too surprising, right? Now, you'll notice those other foods, these other foods down here, vegetables, nuts, whole grains, fruits, and yogurts, all the bars are going in the other direction, meaning that actual people are losing weight over time. It's just a little bit of weight. It's half a pound every 4 years. But individuals who tended to eat more fruits, vegetables, nuts, whole grains, those things that we know we're supposed to be eating, right, tended to, over time, either lose or maintain their weight. So really, dietary pattern really has an influence over time of what happens to your weight. Now, the bottom ones are beverages. And so oftentimes we don't think that beverages affect our weight, but they really do. So this study also saw that individuals who ate sweetened beverages like Coke and Kool-Aid and those kind of sweetened beverages, or those who ate more servings of juices, which is kind of surprising, also tended to gain some weight over time. And you know that ounce per ounce, juice has the same amount of calories as a Coke does. So if you drink a lot of juice, you're actually consuming a lot of calories. Nutritionally, of course, the juice is better for you than the Coke is, but calorie-wise, it's about the same. And then, on the bottom side, actually you've got some milk there and 0-calorie sodas, so like Diet Coke or something. So individuals who, instead of drinking the regular sugared Coke, were drinking diet soda, actually either didn't gain weight or lost just a little bit over time. Okay, so really, I think what this slide is showing is that if we establish a good eating pattern over time that includes more things like white meats, nuts, vegetables, whole grains, fruits, yogurts, over time we're not going to have that weight gain. And so dietary pattern really can affect our weight over time. Very, very important.
The investigator summarized, if we take some food items this side, most likely the food item can cause you eat much less of other food, and then reduce the total energy intake, total calorie intake. and then further reduce the body weight. That's the hypothesis, and also demonstrated by the epidemiology study. However, not every cancer survivor should lose weight. We have several questions. Who should not lose weight? Survivor at risk of unintentional weight loss. Many people haven't changed their lifestyle, eat less, or not active, but they feel unintentionally lose weight. That's the indicator we should visit the physician to give a diagnosis, to detect what's the reason make the weight loss. And generally, could be the malnutrition, or receive the cancer treatment, or some GI disease. And unknown reason are important. And here, we should clarify what's the reason. And then we can be actively lose weight. Otherwise, we should pay more attention to our body weight. Generally, if we lose body weight, that means we eat less. However, for us, we should really prevent some nutritional deficiencies. If we eat less, that means we eat less minerals and vitamins, many things. We try to keep a balanced diet. And then, also we try to keep the lean body mass. That means the muscle mass. Generally, after 40 or 45, we cannot increase the muscle mass. Generally, we can maintain or lose the muscle mass. For cancer survivors, we should really keep or maintain lean body mass. And then to minimize nutrition-related side effects, improve quality of life.
So our next topic, speaking of maintaining muscle mass, we all know that if you don't use it, you lose it. So you got to make sure that you use it. But now we're going to talk a little bit about physical activity. And of course, physical activity, if we want to maintain muscle mass, we've got to stay physically active. How many of you all do exercises regularly? Come on, there's got to be more hands out there. Walking, doing a little bit of weightlifting, doing some bike riding, right? Very, very important to keep our muscle mass. But we're going to talk a little bit now about the relationship of being physically active and your risk for getting cancer or survivorship from cancer. And Dr. Lee.
Okay. The main reason we want to present all the purpose is to make us believe there is strong evidence to support physical activity can reduce the cancer risk. Here is the study of physical activity and colorectal cancer. On the left side, that means physical activity reduce risk of reduce the colorectal cancer. Reduce the colorectal cancer. And we can see almost all the studies consistently show the same result. Here is the proximal colon cancer. That means on the up and the right side of colon. And this part is for distal colon cancer. That means on the left side of colon cancer. Almost physical activity reduced.
Whoopsie.
26 to 27% the colorectal cancer risk.
So that last slide's kind of crazy, but right? But really, it's strong evidence. All of those studies really were showing that physical activity reduces somebody's risk for colorectal cancer. I mean, just by being physically active, you can reduce your risk for colorectal cancer. So that's great news. So now we're talking about breast cancer, and a little bit we're discussing now about somebody who's already been diagnosed with breast cancer, and what was the effect of physical activity on how they were able to fight that breast cancer. So this was again an analysis of multiple studies, and oops,
Is that you or him?
I don't know if that's there. Good.
We just focus on the physical activity after diagnosis. And here, pre-diagnosis physical activity, that means can reduce the risk of breast cancer or cause mortality. And the post-diagnosis physical activity can reduce about 34% of the mortality from breast cancer and 35% mortality for all mortality. Especially for the people overweight or obese, can reduce about 47% mortality. So if we are very inactive, we can be active. That means we can improve about 47% of our survival.
So we've talked a little bit about how our weight can affect our risk for cancer, and by controlling our weight, we can actually improve our survival from cancer, various cancers. And then we talked a little bit about physical activity and how physical activity actually can decrease our risk for colorectal cancer just by being physically active, and can actually improve the potential outcomes if we've been diagnosed with something like breast cancer. So these are lifestyle things we can do. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the relationship between being physically active and some of those quality of life factors that get affected when we have a cancer diagnosis. And so we're going to talk a little bit about fatigue. You know that when you're tired and fatigued constantly, your quality of life goes down, right? Also, depression. Those individuals, when you have depression, your quality of life is decreased. So this is the one way we measure quality of life, whether somebody's depressed or not. Mental health is another measure. And then we have just a person's ability to function physically, to get up and do what you want to do physically. If you can't do that, it really affects your quality of life. And then finally, social function. Are you able to come to events like this and engage and enjoy your social life? And many of these quality of life factors are affected in a person who is diagnosed with cancer and then goes through cancer treatment.
Here, this study was published in the British Medical Journal. And here we can find the same study are very high quality. And we can see physical activity. On this side, that means decrease of fatigue. Each of the decrease the fatigue. And then major depression, and also reduce the risk of depression. Major mental health and study show physical activity improve the mental health and improve the physical function and improve the social function. Another study reviewed the 44 study with the intervention of physical activity, how to improve quality of life. Get a conclusion is exercise reduce cancer-related fatigue, especially in the program that involve moderate intensity resistance exercise among older cancer survivors. The evidence are very strong to encourage us to be active, to improve our quality of life. Another caution about physical activity. And generally, if the patient on treatment, maybe we should suggest the patient a little bit reduce the physical activity in terms of the frequency, intensity, total time. And then after the treatment, we can encourage them to be more active, and then to become more active and increase the intensity or frequency. But then no matter how, during the treatment or after the treatment, the patient or cancer survivor should be positive to think about the physical activity, but not tired of physical activity.
So great. Now we get to talk about diet, my favorite subject. And again, you guys just ate a wonderful meal, so you don't have any guilt when we're talking about this. Of course, nutrition really affects our health. How many of you all believe that nutrition affects your health? Yeah, it absolutely does. And it has a lot to do with our risk for getting cancer. And it's also very important as a cancer survivor to improve quality of life and survivorship from having cancer.
I'm glad you had a very healthy dinner. And generally, we think about healthy diet. What's the healthy diet? That means our daily life, right? For the plates, we can see here is the healthy eating plate suggested by the Harvard School of Public Health and the Harvard Medical School. And generally, our plate should be half and half. Half is vegetable and fruit. And another half is whole grains, main dish, and also some healthy protein. I'll go through each of them. In terms of the vegetable, we try to eat a variety of vegetable. Red color, green color, yellow color, and many kind. And fruits, and also eat plenty of fruits of all color. But generally, fruits and vegetable are not equally consumed. Should have more vegetable and less fruits, about 3 to 2. And for the whole grain, that means we try to eat our main dish. At least half of them should come from the whole grain or brown rice. Generally, like here, the slides give us some example: brown rice, whole wheat bread, whole grain pasta, limit refined grain like white rice and white bread. Generally, the refined grain just left carbohydrate, but in almost a very minimal vitamins and minerals. Almost the nutrition value is much lower. For the healthy protein, generally we eat a lot of meat to get the protein. However, if we eat a lot of meat, especially red meat and processed meat, and they can increase lots of total calorie intake, increase total energy intake, and further to make our body weight even gain body weight. We should choose fish, chicken, and turkey, and some vegetable like beans, nuts. Generally, the beans and the nuts are good source of protein. And try to avoid processed meat. And then we also use the oil. Generally, plant oil are very healthy, especially for the olive oil. We try to limit or avoid trans fat. We all know the trans fat we try to avoid, not limit. And then for the drinking, we try to drink water. Since the water is no energy and no chemical and natural. And even the juice and the soda, a lot of energy inside. For example, just one bottle of the orange juice, about 240 calories. It's a lot. About 22 gram sugar. It's a lot of sugar inside. And then we keep physical active.
So here we have a list of all kinds of grains that are whole grains. Some of them I'm sure you know and may have tried. Some of them may be strange to you. I know that probably here the one that's the most, in fad right now is the quinoa. How many of you all have heard of quinoa? So we have some hands. Good for you. I actually have given you a little recipe there for quinoa. It can actually be used almost like a little pasta or a couscous, almost even like rice. But it's a very nice type of grain that has a lot of protein in it, and it's a very complete protein, very nutritious. So if you want to try something new, try that quinoa recipe. You can find it now in your grocery store. And Marilyn is holding up Marilyn has a box of it over there. I think we're going to raffle that box off. So whoever the lucky winner is, you'll have a recipe to try to cook it with. And then, of course, there are other examples here of whole grains that have both soluble and insoluble fibers in them, etc., and they're very good for you to try.
And the next is about the vegetable. And generally, the vegetable and the food can reduce many kinds of cancer, like lung cancer, oral cancer, and stomach and colon cancer. And cancer survivors should be encouraged to take at least 2 to 3 servings of vegetable and 2 servings of fruits. And we can treat each vegetable as a multivitamin. For example, the green leaf vegetable have beta-carotene, have fiber, and have vitamin B, and also many minerals like magnesium. And we can treat each of them as a multivitamin. And for the dietary fiber, can come from many kinds of vegetables.
So with dietary fiber, we know that dietary fiber is very important for the health of your intestinal tract. And consuming a healthy quantity of dietary fiber daily is very important. And you can get them from many sources, including your whole grains are going to be high in dietary fiber, but fruits and vegetables as well. And so by using that plate example and consuming those kinds of proportions of vegetables, fruits, and whole grains, you will be consuming sufficient fiber for the health of your gastrointestinal tract.
Another special food item is tomato. And we all know, at least some of us know about the lycopene. We can find it from the vitamin store. Generally, the lycopene mainly come from the tomato. And other vegetables like watermelon have much less lycopene. And not many kind of food has lycopene, mainly from the tomato. Therefore, the lycopene can improve quality of life, the survival of the prostate cancer, and also reduce risk of prostate cancer. It is important for men. And besides the tomato, we can find many tomato sauce in the store. We can use it for pizza or sauce flavor.
I think that how many of you all are growing tomatoes in your gardens this year? Boy, we have a bumper tomato crop. So feed tomato to your men, and you men eat tomato. That's the message here. So finally, meats. red meats. You've heard us talk about it quite a bit, and I know that many of us are grew up consuming red meats, but really there is very strong evidence that red meat consumption, increased red meat consumption, is not so good for our health, both for cardiovascular disease, and there is some relatively strong evidence for cancer as well. So it increases the risk of certain kinds of cancers, including colorectal cancer, prostate and stomach cancer. And so really the recommendation to decrease the times per week that you consume red meat is something you could do for yourself in terms of decreasing your risk for cancer. Now, the other question is high temperatures. When we cook meats at very high temperatures, like when you're grilling, those high heats, it actually forms compounds that are cancer-causing compounds called heterocyclic amines. And so there's a recommendation to try not to cook your meats at too high of temperatures. And actually that temperature is above 300. But it's oftentimes the temperatures that you experience when you're either pan frying something, because that oil gets really hot, or when you're cooking on the grill. And the development of those heterocyclic amines actually increases with the length of time that you're cooking those meats as well. And so how many of you have heard that cooking your meat on the grill could cause cancer? Yeah. Well, actually, it does produce these chemicals, including some others, that are carcinogenic. Now, I've given you there a sheet that talks about how you can grill and reduce the development of these compounds. So we get that question every time. Oh, did you not hand it out? So we have it here. It's called Tips for Grilling. Things you can do to reduce the formation of these heterocyclic amines and these PHAs, polyaromatic hydrocarbons. So one thing is you want to avoid that the fire comes up and burns your meat. That burn on it actually is where some of those carcinogens are. So there are things you can do to your grill to make sure that doesn't happen. Cover your grill with foil and some other things. Also, if you will marinate your meat, how many of y'all marinate your meat before you throw it on the grill? That really helps. So if you marinate it in something like a lime juice or vinegar and some herbs, like rosemary and sage, if you'll put that on your meat before, it actually decreases the production of these carcinogens. So there's a lot of things you can do to decrease this when you're grilling. In addition, including vegetables on your grill. How many of y'all grill vegetables when you're grilling those meats? If you don't do it already, you ought to try it. Matter of fact, try some tomato. You'll get the lycopene and you'll be grilling it, and it's delicious. Have you grilled tomato over your grill? So look up some recipes for grilling vegetables on your grill as well. Fish has reduced heterocyclic amines when you grill them. Has less fat as well. So grilling fish is a really good idea. So if you like to grill, there are things you can do to continue grilling, continue enjoying your grilling, and still reduce some of these bad things that happen when you're grilling in a different way.
Yeah. Many of us are very clear about the supplements use. Actually, and the recommendation from American Cancer Society and American Institute for Cancer Research don't encourage cancer survivors to take supplements, except some special reason. And currently, we have an ideal hypothesis. That means from our normal diet, we still have some nutritional deficiency. We don't know, might be vitamin A, vitamin B, vitamin B12, or magnesium. And then we take a multivitamin to prevent the nutritional deficiency. That's our ideal hypothesis. However, in the past several years, many studies, especially clinical trials does not support the use of supplements. For example, we try to use the vitamin A to prevent prostate cancer. However, the clinical trial how many people know clinical trial? Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about clinical trial. That means at the beginning, we are a group, and then we randomly assign half of us to take vitamin E. Another half don't take vitamin E. And we expect the vitamin E taker have a less risk of prostate cancer. However, this study was failed because after 10 to 15 years follow-up, investigators find a high risk among vitamin E intaker and they have a high risk of prostate cancer. Similarly, we use the beta-carotene and the vitamin A to prevent lung cancer among smokers. Also identified vitamin A increased risk of lung cancer among the smokers. And many studies, the investigators have a good expectation, but the expectation will fail. And it turned out some supplements may increase the risk of cancer. Some hypothesis is ongoing. We don't know the reason. And potentially, if we already have a good diet, we take extra supplements. Our normal cell don't use the supplements. However, our cancer cell in early stage may take advantage of the nutrition supplements, and then the cancer cell grow faster. That is one of our hypotheses. No matter how the evidence suggests some supplements may increase the risk of cancer or some certain type of cancer. And currently, we haven't found any supplements can reduce the risk of cancer. That means all of those evidence encourage us to have a good diet. Good diet means we have a good breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and try to manage our general meals to be healthy. And supplements cannot replace our general diet.
So, have anybody heard about the relationship of soy and breast cancer? Has anybody heard that if you had breast cancer, you shouldn't be eating soy? So some people have heard that. So there was some evidence in 2004, both kind of evidence that was in a laboratory done in petri dishes and animals, that increased soy intake might increase the growth of cancer cells, and particularly breast cancer. And so there was originally this information that increased intake of soy might, for breast cancer survivors, was contraindicated. You shouldn't do it. But actually there's some more recent evidence that is pretty strong that shows that soy might actually decrease your risk for cancer and increase your survival. So Dr. Nina is going to talk about those.
And before the 2002, scientists found one chemical in soy, and we call it insoflavin. Insoflavin have a similar structure to estrogen. And at that time, scientists already know estrogen can increase risk of many cancers, like breast cancer. So the scientists found that a chemical similar to estrogen, they suspected the soy and the soy products may increase risk of breast cancer. And even at that time, American Cancer Society or many professional organizations don't encourage general population to take soy, or for the cancer survivor, don't take soy. However, in the past 5 to 10 years, a new evidence come out soy protein, can decrease the risk, decrease of total mortality of the breast cancer survivor, and also decrease breast cancer recurrence and the mortality. Those studies measured the chemical, this chemical, and the results show high intake of this chemical even have decreased the total mortality, decreased the risk of recurrence and mortality. That study was conducted in Asia. And many people may question us. We, American, Caucasian, are very different with Asian. Therefore, some new study in the past 5 years show in non-Asian, mainly Caucasian, the study was conducted in US, found high intake of isoflavone has a lower risk of the all-cause mortality, about 11% reduced risk. And the breast cancer mortality reduced 20%. Recurrence reduced around 17%. What is the reason? Several scientists propose a hypothesis. That means the two keys. We try to open a door. One key are exactly matched to the lock. Another key, similar, but insert the lock cannot open the door. When the chemical put in the lock, the estrogen cannot insert the lock. So just block the effect of estrogen. And soy products, especially the isoflavone, may have the effect reduce the risk of breast cancer. We talk about the risk of breast cancer. Right now, we talk about the recurrence. The recurrence, that means the cancer already diagnosed. And if the survivor take the soy food and reduce the risk of the recurrence. Similar study was also conducted and showed that soy-based food reduced the risk of the lung cancer about 41%. And if we compare the chemical from the highest intake to the lowest intake, about 70% reduced the risk for lung cancer.
So, association between alcohol intake and cancer. So, there is potentially an association between increased alcohol intake and increased risk of some primary cancers. And that can be exacerbated in women who are overweight or obese and have this estrogen receptor positive as well. Really, the recommendation, I think the basic recommendation is that if you've had a cancer diagnosis, you most certainly should not be drinking alcohol. Now, some of us have heard that alcohol intake at a moderate level, moderate being maybe 1 glass a day for women, 2 servings a day for men, can be positive for your cardiovascular system. And so really, intake of alcohol, whether you should or should not, probably should be discussed with your primary care physician who knows your health condition. In general, if you've had a cancer diagnosis or you have a family history and are at risk for development of cancer, you should probably avoid alcohol intake.
And generally, they think about the alcohol intake. Alcohol intake increases risk of the head and the neck cancer, and also the breast cancer. Especially some women are called ER positive. That means estrogen receptor and alcohol can really increase the risk of breast cancer. Another aspect is we should think about individually, this question individually. Since increase the risk of cancer and also reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease, we move to another topic is how about individualized lifestyle change? Each of us are very different. We have some cancer risk and also maybe also have another competing risk like cardiovascular disease. However, one of my study that was accepted as by American Cancer Association for Cancer Research as a conference news release about the study. Mainly the results show all cancer survivors, all diagnosed of cancer survivors, and we want to see what is their final cause of death. Since no matter we are healthy or cardiovascular disease or cancer, the final destination is the same 100 years later. So we try to see what's the death cause. The red, that means died from cancer. The blue means died from other disease. And we almost can see half of cancer survivors died from other disease. More than half of them died from cancer itself. Therefore, the reason we really think about the cancer survivor, before their diagnosis, they may already had a cardiovascular disease or many kind of disease. And they had not diagnosed as disease before the cancer diagnosis. Another possibility would be the cancer treatment, like chemotherapy or radiotherapy, may increase the risk of cardiovascular disease. A third reason would be after my cancer diagnosis, I don't care about anything else. Even my heartbeat are not normal, I feel the first priority is still cancer. It's not true. It's not correct. So they neglect the risk of other disease. And we really should balance the risk of the cancer, the cardiovascular disease. As Dr. Rafi said about alcohol intake, we should really consult to our physician. Should I take alcohol or not? Maybe for the prostate cancer, some cancer are not strongly related with the colorectal cancer, strongly associated with alcohol intake. Maybe you should take alcohol moderately. But for some cancer survivor, like a breast cancer survivor or head neck cancer survivor, really think about, I should eat as less as possible, drink as less as possible. And then to reduce risk of cancer, also reduce risk of other disease. It's a kind of balance, should be individualized. So here is a...
So in conclusion, I think basically each one of us is very unique, very individual. And of course, our lifestyles, although we've now kind of painted a picture of what a healthy diet is, what a healthy exercise and maintaining a healthy weight are, all of us are very individual. And so we can individualize our lifestyles according to our own risk factors. So that's the message. This last slide actually is a study that Dr. Ning is conducting, and he's actually conducting it here in Emporia as well as other locations in the state, and it has to do with lifestyle factors of cancer survivors. A very interesting study, and he can talk a little bit more about it.
And the major reason I conducted a study in the South Virginia, there are several reasons. The first is a high risk of cancer, high risk of cardiovascular disease, high risk of diabetes in South Virginia compared to the rest of the state of Virginia. We don't know the reason. We might have some special reason to increase the risk of cancer. So my study mainly focused on South and Southwest Virginia, try to identify the reason. The second, I focus on some modifiable factors. That means as a cancer survivor or as a healthy participant, we can change our lifestyle, we can manage our lifestyle to reduce the risk of cancer. We focus on the activity, sleep, and the diet. And in the study, we recruited the cancer survivors, the lung cancer, breast cancer, colorectal cancer, and the prostate cancer. We also need the healthy participants if the age more than 18 years old. And in the study, we focus on what we talked about the several factors. Body weight. Body weight is important for prevention and the survival of the cancer. Second, be very active to reduce the risk of cancer and also improve quality of life. The third is a healthy diet. Healthy diet is eat everything moderately and eat a variety of diet. And the third, and then the last and also important is individualized lifestyle. That means your lifestyle is different with all of us. How to manage your lifestyle better to improve your life, quality of life, and improve the life expectancy.
Well, I think that's the conclusion of our presentation. Does anyone have any questions?